Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. The Trailblazers and head coach Terry Stotts have mutually agreed to part ways. That's according to multiple reports. In other words, Terry Stotts was fired on Friday, just one day after the Blazers were eliminated by the Nuggets in the first round. Trailblazers have lost in the first round of the playoffs 4 of the last 5 seasons, and you know that it's what have you done for me lately, and Terry Stotts has not gotten it done for the Trailblazers. So they are making a move. Stotts had just completed his 9th season as head coach in Portland, where he was the second winningest coach in franchise history behind only the late, great Dr. Jack Ramsey. But Terry Stotts out in Portland one day after getting eliminated in the first round by Denver. Get some instant analysis. Welcome to CBS Sports NBA writer Colin Ward-Henninger. Colin, your reaction here, Terry Stotts and the Blazers mutually agreeing to part ways.
Yeah, there's not much of a surprise here. I think pretty much everyone in the NBA world saw this coming. The word on the street was that if the Blazers didn't have a better playoff performance, Stotts was going to be out. And they certainly didn't have that, losing to a shorthanded Denver Nuggets team in the first round. So, you know, Damian Lillard goes on Instagram immediately after the game, has this cryptic tweet about whether he should continue to stay loyal or not. So I think a head coaching change there makes a lot of sense, given what the Blazers have gone through in the playoffs the last few seasons.
Now, I will say, though, Colin, and you know how it works here in the NBA, Terry Stotts has been consistent getting Portland to the playoffs. He's gotten them to the playoffs 8 straight times. The only time they didn't make the playoffs was in his first season. They just never got far enough. I mean, they lost in the first round 4 of the last 5 seasons. And as you know, this is a what have you done for me lately, and they haven't done enough.
Absolutely, and it's really not Terry Stotts' fault. I mean, he's been a tremendous coach. He's got tons of respect by players and coaches throughout the league. It just seems to be a case where things just ran their course, and you know, eventually you need a coach that's gonna take you over the hump, get you to the next level, and the Blazers clearly don't think that Stotts is going to be that guy. Sometimes you just need a new voice in the locker room, and obviously this goes beyond just the coaching situation in Portland. There's going to be something have to be done from the front office in terms of getting Damian Lillard some new pieces. I actually thought they did a pretty good job of that this offseason, bringing in Robert Covington and Derrick Jones Jr., adding depth on the wing, but it clearly didn't make a difference. They still had the same results. So there's going to have to be a lot of changes, and eventually, you know, the Blazers might have to look into shopping a guy like CJ McCollum, which is going to be a very difficult situation because of how beloved he is in Portland.
Well, speaking of shopping, and I'm sure Portland has no interest in doing this, but we know that Damian Lillard here is under contract in Portland through the 24-25 season. Is there any way, is there chatter, what you're hearing from around the league, that he could possibly try to force his way out of Portland before then?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the only reason that they would ever trade Damian Lillard, is if he went to them and said, look, I'm not playing another game in Portland. From what I'm hearing, that is not on the table right now. As we know, Damian Lillard is as loyal as they come in the NBA. He has actually made fun of other players like Paul George for chasing rings. So for him to flip-flop and suddenly demand a trade, I think is a little bit out of character. But look, this is the NBA. You know, nobody thought Anthony Davis was the type of player that would go in and demand a trade. That ended up happening. Ultimately, Damian Lillard is looking across the league and he's seeing guys like Kevin Durant, guys like James Harden, Kyrie Irving going into these winning situations and playing for titles, and he's going home after the first round year after year after year. That has to start to weigh on you when you're a player of Lillard's caliber. So I don't think we're near that point where he's going to demand a trade. I think he's going to give them a chance this offseason to, as I said, make some tweaks, see what they can do. But if they continue to flounder out in the first round, eventually Lillard has to say, look, this is my prime. These are my best years in the NBA, and I want to be on a winning team. And maybe Portland might not be the best place for that down the road.
Yeah, to get him to stay. And even though he's under contract, certainly going to have to add some pieces, and they're going to have to find a head coach that can win immediately, because this franchise is certainly trying to get there. We've seen them compete in the postseason, but you heard Damian Lillard on Thursday night said, obviously we didn't do enough to win a championship against a banged-up Nuggets team, and he was frustrated, and rightfully so. So really they're going to need certainly some extra pieces, and now looking for a new head coach. Right now there's 2 openings, Portland and Boston. Who might be some targets for Portland at this point? We know Jason Kidd's name's been thrown out there.
Yeah, Jason Kidd will probably be on the list. We've also heard that Jeff Van Gundy might be a possibility. Even Juwan Howard from the college ranks. Ultimately, you're going to need a coach that can get them to play defense, and that's really been the one knock on Stotts. Their offense has been tremendous. They actually had the second best offensive rating in the history of the NBA this season. And it didn't matter come playoff time because they could not play defense. They could not stop the other team from scoring. So if you're looking at a guy like Van Gundy, you see what Tom Thibodeau was able to do with the Knicks, taking a bad defensive team, turning them into one of the best defensive teams in the league. That's the thing that Portland is going to be looking for, because we know they're going to score. If they keep Lillard and McCollum, they're going to be able to score. They need to be able to defend, and that's what wins in the playoffs. And that's the type of head coach they're probably going to be looking for next to replace Stotts.
Well, Portland wasting no time firing Terry Stotts, or in other words, mutually agreeing to part ways with Terry Stotts one day after getting eliminated in the first round by the Denver Nuggets. Colin Ward-Henninger breaking it down for us here on CBS Sports HQ. Thank you, Colin. And as we mentioned, the Trailblazers have been in the postseason. They just haven't gone that far in the postseason. 8 straight appearances that Stotts has guided the Blazers to, but only one resulting in the conference finals. That was back in 2019 when they got swept by the Golden State Warriors.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.